In our day's life, things that are happening, you can turn hate into love. In 1968, I was in first grade. I was watching the returns with my parents when President Nixon, or I should say Congressman Nixon, became president, or he was elected president. And my father was strongly supportive of him. However, as the years progressed, in 1972, 73, my father ended up just hating Nixon, and so did I. And just shortly before his resignation, we had just moved into our new home in Sherman Oaks. And my birthday was August 7th. And of course, there was a lot of talk that, he was about to resign or give his resignation. The plumber that had worked on our home just hated him. We used to eat down at Solly's hamburger stand. That's before they opened up the deli at Van Nuys Airport, which has since been on Van Nuys Boulevard, I should say, which has since been torn down. And he resigned on the 8th, and I was always mad about that because he didn't resign on my birthday, which was August 7th. In 1993, my mother suffered a series of strokes, which led to her death in 93. And it was actually a blessing because many of the wonderful little antiques and whatnots that she had kept from her time as a little girl and growing up in Milwaukee and West Dallas were destroyed in the Northridge earthquake. And of course, in 1994, President Nixon passed away, and there was a tremendous amount of media coverage. And I was still skeptical then, but after a whole week of watching just how a man who had gone down rose again like the phoenix to become such a wonderful statesman, I ended up just weeping. I mean, I wept. And it may have also had something to do with my fact, my mother had died a year earlier, the same condition, so on and so forth. And I have come to love former President Nixon. And, we always see the clip of President Nixon where he says, "I'm not a crook." But right after that statement, he had a real cute back and forth with the Washington Post about how he enjoyed their sports page. Of course, that clip doesn't get shown in many of the documentaries. And later on, and I mean, what he said about he enjoying their sports page, and it just brought the whole press corps to just total laughter. It was just really good to see it. And there was another part where they got into the energy crisis, and he said that in order to save fuel, they didn't have a backup plane to Air Force One. And he says, I don't need a backup plane. If Air Force One goes down, well, then they don't have to impeach me. And it just brought the audience. They just roared at that. And he was in front of the reporters. I'll put a link to the clip that you can see that. But I thought it was just really, interesting as to what I, had been through, grew up, hating this man and turning into to loving him. And he even talked about, when he got into the nuclear power, he said, look, my home in San Clemente is right near Southern California Edison's plant. Actually, I toured that plant. I think it was around, about the same time, 67, 68. I remember going through the tour that they had down there. My grandmother lived in Vista. But he also made some very interesting statements in the same press conference. It was for the Associated Press about Venezuela. And he says, Venezuela is a great country. Now, if they ever get a radical government, there may be some problems. But I thought that was quite interesting. But that was one lesson that I learned in life, is that you can love somebody that you used to hate. And I honor President Nixon's service to our nation. Growing up in 3rd and 4th grade, I remember reading all about Nixon's trip to China. We used to have a publication for us kids that was called the Weekly Reader. And it's just an example. And I will put the link to the whole press conference. Hopefully you'll watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. And, Reagan has a humor tape, but I'm telling you, it really was an enjoyable thing to see. And it was a lot of wit and humor of President Nixon. And, as I said before, he just had a real cute exchange with the reporter from the Washington Post where they were talking about the sports page. Okay, well, with that, we will see you in the next clip.